Okay, next topic is transitioning from a verbal admission to a confession. Last meeting, pinag-usapan natin kung papaano mag-conduct ng accusatory and non-accusatory interviews. Now, those interviews, dahil ang goal nga natin in every interrogation is to acquire a confession. So, how do we transition from verbal admission na una nilang sinabi to, ayun nga, to a confession? Okay. So the subject's admission represents an important step in the interview process. It's a breakthrough dahil mahalagang parte yon dahil nagbigay na siya ng impormasyon na may alam siya tungkol sa krimen na nangyari o dun sa inaakusa natin sa kanya. The subject has ceased to deny taking part in the activity. It is important uh, for the interviewer to move the subject beyond an admission to an actual confession. Kasi nga, sabi dyan, the subject has ceased to deny taking part in the activity. Hindi na niya dine-deny. So, in a way, sinasabi na niyang may alam siya. In a way, kumbaga malapit ka ng makarating dun sa punto na sasabihin na niyang siya nga ang gumawa. Okay. Investigators often use an interview technique known as the assumptive question to obtain the first admission. So the following are the two types of assumptive questions. First is the choice question. The other one is soft accusation. So when we say choice question, the interviewer presents the subject with two rationalizations. Katulad doon sa read technique na una na nating napag-usapan. One good and one bad. Then encourages the subject to choose. The interviewer may emphasize either the good or the bad choice. For example, in the investigation of a shooting, the interviewer might use the following accusation. Mary, when you went over there, did you intend to shoot Joe or just scare him with the gun? You wanted to scare him, right? Kumbaga, yun na nga, um, binigyan mo siya ng dalawang option. Did you intend to shoot Joe? Talaga pinagplanuhan mo bang barilin si Joe? O gusto mo lang naman siyang takutin? Kasi, uh, in this in this statement, yung isa mabigat, yung isa mas magaan. So, tapos ililid mo na siya doon sa magaan na choice. You just wanted to scare him, right? Ba gusto mo lang naman siyang takutin? Wala ka naman talagang intention patayin siya eh. Tapos kapag sinabi na niyang, oo, gusto ko lang siyang takutin, ayun na yung admission mo. Kasi, nung una, may mga pagkakataon na dinideny niya talaga na hindi, wala akong alam dyan, wala akong partisipasyon, hindi ako involved sa kaso na yan. So kapag sumang-ayon na siya na oo, gusto ko lang naman siyang takutin, yun na, may admission ka na. Pero kailangan mo pa ng confession. Kasi nga, sabihin natin totoo na gusto niya lang talagang takutin. Ibig sabihin ba nun siya na ang pumatay? Hindi pa rin. Kasi ang inamin niya lang, gusto niyang takutin. Pero hindi niya pa inaamin na siya nga ang gumawa ng krimen. So when the answers yes to the good option, she has chosen an easy way her to admit to her involvement. And then the other assumptive question is the soft accusation. The interviewer does not ask if the subject did something, but rather asks a broad question about the incidents that assumes the subject's involvement. For example, in the investigation of an employee taking money from cash registers at work, the interviewer might ask, Mary, when was the time that you took money? Sobrang broad, sobrang general. Baka nung bata pa siya, nangupit na siya. Di ba? So this question is often followed up with a choice question or some sort of yes-no question like, have you been taking money since your first day of work? So, papalapit ka na doon sa exciting part. Papalapit ka na doon sa pagkuha mo nga ng confession. That's how you transition from verbal admission to confession. Kasi dito sa part na to, sabi niya nga, di ba, Mary, when was the first time that you took money? Baka ang sabihin niya, nung bata po ako, nangungupit po ako. So, na-admit na niya na may pagkakataon na kumukuha siya ng pera. So, kumbaga, ang sunod na step mo is i-convert mo na nga yun sa confession. Eto na, ganito. Okay. But, so while these techniques are very effective, they only result in admissions. Kasi nga, kailangan mo pa siyang i-convert sa confession. The interviewer must continue to develop the admissions into a confession. In a confession, the subject takes responsibility for his or her actions. The confession should be well supported with a detailed description of the subject's actions and motive. Dahil napaamin mo na nga siya sa unang pagkakataon na may participation siya doon sa issue or doon sa crime, then you will continue on in gathering detailed information para ma-convert din yon at matulungan siyang, yun nga, matulungan kang ma-convert yung admission niya into a confession. This is the phase of the interview when the interviewer should attempt to develop additional information about accomplices and other crimes that the subject has committed. Once the subject has made his or her confession, the interviewer should document the confession in a statement. So ano yung statement? The statement may be the most important part of the interview. It is one of the key items that the investigator will use to help prove the case in court. Many police agencies now record or videotape interviews. These recordings can be used as powerful evidence in a trial or as protection for the interviewer if accused of misconduct during an interview. May mga pagkakataon kasi na baka sabihin nung in-interview mo or in-interrogate mo, kasi sir, pinilit lang ako, tinakot po ako eh. Kumbaga, madedenay mo yung ganong accusation as the interrogator kung meron ka na nga nung kanyang statement. However, whatever method is chosen chosen, the statements should include a waiver of rights and acknowledgement that the subject was not coerced to make the statement. The time, date, and names of all people present during the process should also be included. Any scratch outs or changes made to a statement should be initialed by the subject. The subject, interviewer, and all witnesses should sign and date each page of the statement para mapatunayan na totoo kung ano man yung nakasulat doon sa statement na yon. Papirmahin mo, ipalagay mo yung petsa ng mga bagay-bagay doon. So the following are some examples of statements that can be used at the conclusion of an interview. The first is that the subject can be asked to provide a written explanation of what occurred in a free narrative format. Pag sinabing free narrative format, kung papaano niya gustong maikwento ang kanyang statement. Or kung papaano niya gustong maikwento yung nangyari. So, the subject writes in his or her own words the details of their confession. Most people, if given the opportunity, will do whatever they can to minimize the seriousness of their actions. There is a real possibility, especially with an inexperienced interviewer, to lose a lot of important information between the confession and the statement. Kaya mahalaga na kapag nag-i-interrogate ka, ay may experience ka na, mahusay ka na, para walang hindi maire-record doon sa statement. Kompleto ang detalye na nandun. When using a free narrative format, it may be necessary to ask the subject to go back and make additions to their statement para makuha mo nga ng buo yung statement nila. It can be time-consuming and almost like interviewing the subject a second time kasi nga pinasusulat mo eh. Yung lahat ng sinabi niya, lahat ng nangyari. The interviewer will often have to read what the subject wrote and say, Mary, didn't you tell me? Kasi baka nga, doon sa statement na sinulat niya, kulang. Tapos may iba siyang sinabi during your initial interview, o yung initial na admission niya. So kailangan ma-check mo yung sinulat niya na kumpleto. So pwede ka mag-follow up na ganon. 'Di ba sinabi mo ganito? Sabi mo kanina ganito ba't wala dito sa statement mo? And then when she agrees to that item, say, please write that down. While a statement in the subject's own handwriting probably holds the most weight for a jury, this can be a very difficult type of statement for some interviewers to obtain. It may, however, be necessary in those instances where the interviewee simply refuses to sign a statement that someone else has prepared. So one application for this type of statement is when the subject continually changes details of his or her involvement. Pabago-bago yung sinasabi niya. Once the subject writes down a version of the story, the interviewer can go to evidence that he or she has held back up to that point and challenge the lie. Pwede siyang, ikaw na interrogator, pwede kang kumuha ng ebidensya na meron na kayo. Pakita mo sa kanya para yun na nga, ma-challenge mo yung kasinungalingan na sinabi niya. The statement can be taken in a guided narrative format. The narrative can be written by either the subject or interviewer. The interviewer goes through each point of the confession details with the subject to verify that they are in agreement. After each point, the investigator either asks the subject to write down what they just said or the interviewer writes it down. The interviewer may choose to prepare a typed version of the statement and present it for the subject's signature. It may be advisable to ascertain the subject's degree of literacy and their educational level. Kasi may mga pagkakataon na yung ini-interview mo ay hindi naman mataas ang napag-aralan, baka nga hindi pa marunong magsulat. Statistics says that majority of those who commit crimes are those with low educational level. Yun. A diplomatic question as to how much education they had may be appropriate. Para alam mo lang, para may background ka lang din. If the interviewer writes or types the statement, he or she should make 2 or 3 minor errors on each page. Once the statement is complete, the interviewer should reread the statement with the subject to verify accuracy, having them read aloud a portion of the statement to ensure that they can, in fact, read, okay, that they can in fact read is also important. Kumbaga, papabasa mo sa kanya kung ano yung na-type o nasulat mo. Note that some illiterate persons are quite adept at disguising their illiteracy. During the reread, the interviewer should ask the subject to make the corrections and initial each one. Para, dahil nga, malaki ang possibility na magkaroon ng pagkakamali doon sa kanyang sinulat o tinype. Kaya habang pinababasa mo sa kanya ulit, as in bibigkasin niya kung ano yung sinulat niya, ay kung may pagkakamali doon, sabihin mo sa kanya na pakitama, pakiayos itong part na to, tapos pirmahan mo para matiyak na siya talaga yung nagsulat o nagpalit ng statement na yun. Since the subject's initials are on corrections throughout the statement as well as their signature on each page, it will be difficult for them to later say that they did not understand what they were signing. Para hindi rin niya ma-deny na hindi ko po kasi alam na ganun po yung ibig sabihin ng sinabi ko. Baka sabihin niya yun later on eh. So, kaya mahalaga na papabasa mo ulit yung sinulat niya na confession. The statement may be taken in a question and answer format. The Q&A statement may be written or typed by a witness or stenographer. As in, parang kang nag-i-interview talaga, katulad sa research. Sir, sa tingin niyo po ba tama ang ginawa niyo? Yun yung tanong. Itatype yun. Kaya question and answer eh. Tapos sa tingin ko po, hindi po tama yun. Yun yung answer. Type din yun. In this type of statement, the interviewer asks a series of questions. Each question and the subject's response is then recorded by the witness. This type of statement is useful for subjects that are unwilling or unable to write their own statements. Okay, so yung nauna is narrative format, then the other one is the question and answer format. Although the interrogation acquires more specific character, straying from the standard one, in the cases listed above, the Code of Criminal Procedure neither uses the term specific forms of the interrogations nor defines their methodology. Furthermore, the catalog presented above is not closed. The inspiration to distinguishing other particular forms of interrogation and drawing up rules of their application is the prospect of obtaining maximally objective, full, explicit, and verifiable relation. Criminological issues of particular forms of the interrogation include, within its scope, the tactics of preparation and conducting an untypical interrogation, the role of specialists participating in the interrogation, the method of the utilization of the most appropriate technical means, and the strategy of an optimal introduction of definite and particular forms of the interrogation in the course of criminal proceedings, particularly in the investigative phase. Okay. The peculiarity of the interrogation may result from the following. First is particular characteristics of the interrogated subject. Siyempre, titignan mo muna kung ano yung behavior, yung personality nung ini-interrogate mo. Particular conditions in which the interrogation is held. Kung anong ba yung present circumstances during the conduct of the interview. Mainit ba? Malamig ba? Lahat i-check mo. Mukha bang kinakabahan yung ini-interrogate mo? Mga ganung bagay. Particular methods of the obtainability of evidential means kung paano makakakuha ng um, physical evidence. And then the specialist subject of the interrogation. So the above-mentioned criteria may accumulate in the course of one interrogation action. For example, the reconstruction of a person's image during the interrogation of a child, obtaining an account from an elderly person, in addition, being unable to speak Polish. Yung mga ganong bagay, kailangan ma-take into consideration mo rin. So the advisable criteria also permit distinguishing the 11 following particular forms of the interrogation. First is the confrontational interrogation of two persons. Then the interrogation concerning material evidence. The interrogation in order to reconstruct the situation or proceedings in place of the event. The interrogation in order to reconstruct the appearance of a person or an object. Interrogation of children, interrogation of the elderly, interrogation of the people with mental disturbances, interrogation of people in the critical health conditions, interrogation through an interpreter, interrogation of the expert witness, and interrogation of the incognito witness. Yan yung mga forms of interrogation kung saan maaari mo magamit yung mga nauna nating nabanggit na criteria during interrogation. From the 11 above mentioned particular forms of the interrogation, the most frequently is the interrogation of children and the elderly is used in practice. Dahil mas madaming, sa mga yun, ang pinaka-madami na ma-encounter mo ay ang pag-i-interrogate ng children, pati na rin ng mga matatanda. They are a special category because iba ang techniques na gagamitin mo. Kapag bata, syempre hindi naman yan direktang magsasabi. So, kailangan i-lead mo pa siya para makakuha ka ng mga impormasyon. Ganun din sa mga matatanda. Distinguishing these two particular forms of the interrogation is connected with the fact that a human being, in the course of their lives, goes through several stages. Napag-uusapan din yan sa human behavior. Diba? Na subject ninyo. Resulting in differences also in the range of formulating the testimony. These are precisely particular subject determinants that have lay at the root of their distinguishing. However, not only children and the elderly are such particular subjects, but also people suffering from different kinds of mental disturbances and people who are in critical health conditions. They also require, on account of their specificity, special treatment. Kasi nga, sabi natin kanina, parang special category yan sila. All these above-mentioned subjects raise standards considerably for interrogators and they are the unceasing challenge for them dahil mahirap talagang makakuha ng impormasyon mula sa mga subjects na ganito.